quote, finely balanced, right? And that is, or that was anyway, your position.
Yeah.
Just to give us a flavour for what you mean by this idea of them being finely balanced, do I interpret from that, I know people might use that phrase in different ways, that was something in the order of 50-50?
Yes.
Benefits first, obviously.
Yeah,
Benefits
yeah,
versus
yeah.
harms. You never actually say in this proof, if you turn right to the end, when you set out your overall conclusion, right at the end, page 26. 7.36, you go through your 148 balance, you set out what the balance is, you repeat a few lines from the bottom that it's finely balanced.
Yeah.
Not clearly outweigh, you say that you're using the language of 148 of the framework, and therefore appeal should be dismissed. That's where it all ends up for you. You never actually say whether you think the harms outweigh the benefits.
Okay.
What, say okay?
Yeah, no, sorry.
But you don't?
No, I don't say that, no.
Is that because you don't think the harms do outweigh the benefits?
Yeah, I don't think the harms outweigh the benefits.
Do you think the benefits outweigh the harms?
Hang on. Do I think the benefits outweigh the harms?
You said that so I don't want to sort of trip you up. Let's start again.
Yes.
You said it's finely balanced.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Your view here, I'm going to ask you whether your view still stacks up given all the things we've talked about, but your view at this stage is that the benefits would not clearly outweigh the harms. That's what you say here,
Yeah.
right?
Identified, yeah.
Okay. You never say that the harms are actually outweigh the benefits. You don't say that here or indeed anywhere else. Is it your view that the harms outweigh the benefits? Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I do understand the question. Do I view that the harms outweigh the benefits that we've just said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't tell us that is your view.
That is my view. Yeah, sorry, I'm just thinking it through. Yeah.
Okay, so right, so your view is that the harms outweigh the benefits. Is that right? You seem to be looking at me.
Yeah.
Is this a difficult one? So right, you've got benefits and harms. Is it your?
Yeah, and I think that the harms don't outweigh those benefits.
Hang on. Let's just keep it. Let's try and make it really simple. You think the harms don't outweigh the benefits? The harms do outweigh the benefits. Sorry to be. I hope it's. I want to keep it as simple as possible.
I think probably you're getting a little bit sort of befuddled on this.
I don't want to make it difficult. I don't know how to make it as simple as possible. Right, you've got.
So I've looked at the grid down.
Forget about the individual ones. I want the overall conclusions. Right, you've got benefits on one side, harms on the other.
And I think there are more harms than benefits.
You think harms outweigh the benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Fine. Now that was at this time. You think the harms outweigh the benefits, albeit you think that it's pretty marginal in the order of 50-50. Okay. Right. That was at the time that you wrote your proof. And at the time that you wrote your proof, you were relying on, in particular, points on ecology. So you thought, for example, that the first thing you thought is just that biodiversity net gain was not going to be deliverable adequately, right? And so you weren't giving much weight to that. If there's a condition that deals with BNG, that goes up from limited to significant weight.
If there is a condition.
Yeah. And there's no, anyway, I've been over that.
Yeah.
So right, so that starts to shift things, doesn't it?
Slightly.
Well, up from limited to significant. Okay. On ecology, you have assumed at the time that you relying on what Mr. Harvey was telling you, that it's unlikely that a license would be obtained for European protected species, and you have therefore reached. You explain this in your proof 7.6 in this section. You've approached the harms side of the balance on that basis. If, however, Mr. Harvey was saying, as he has now said, that in fact a licence can indeed be achieved down the line at reserve matter stage and then with Natural England, that starts to shift the balance too.
Yeah.
So the BNG stuff is shifting and the dormice stuff is shifting as well. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's only shifting in one direction, it's shifting in favour of granting.
Well, potentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not potentially, that's the direction of travel. If BNG is a significant benefit, and if we end up agreeing, as we have done, that there's, as Mr. Watley said, he said, of course, there's a licensable scheme here in due
He did
course.
say
or whatever.
that, yeah.
And so, in fact, and it's not a criticism of you, because you're relying on what you're being told by specialist consultants in their field. But truth be told, the ground has shifted a bit since you wrote your proof of evidence on ecology.
Yes. From the outcome of this appeal, yes, yeah.
Yeah, so and the way in which it shifted has been to shift things in favour of granting planning permission. Not saying then you've got to grant it,
No,
that's the direction of travel. That's ecology, and it's sort of the same thing for care beds too. I mean, in the end, care beds are a benefit, we agree, but your assessment of care beds in this final section of your analysis relies on the idea that Ms. Richardson's correct. If in the end the inspector goes along with, you know, use of the shop hat tool and all of that stuff, so there's a significant unmet need, we've agreed that your analysis in those circumstances would take your limited benefit or whatever and turn it into a considerable benefit or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's an if. We don't. Ms. Richardson did not agree that that was the appropriate thing to do, although she did agree that her approach is, as she's fallen into the same fundamental flaw as Louise Nelson described it, as it happened in the Shrewsbury case. It's for our inspector to decide what to do. If in the end our inspector thinks that it was all that she's fallen into that fundamental flaw that was identified in that case, and so he goes along with Mr. Tennant, we would then have in those circumstances another benefit, going from limited weight on your analysis up to considerable.
Yeah.
And let's just be straightforward about this. In those circumstances, you would be supporting the grant of permission.
In those circumstances, yeah.
So if, and I think that flows from the council's opening statement as well.
Yeah.
Really, on your analysis, the only things that were standing in our way, if you like, just get out the opening statement. Sorry, I don't want to misquote it. Hold on one sec. Okay, I'll read it out to you if you've not got it. Paragraph 5 of Mr. Atkinson's opening says, what tips the balance, the overall balance against permission in this case, such that it cannot be said that very special circumstances have been demonstrated are, number one, the inability of the development to deliver appropriate mitigation for dormice, and number two, the absence of demand for care homes. Those are the two things. So if it's right that in the end, the inspector is with us on the ability to achieve a licence for dormice, and if in the end there is demand for care homes, your advice to the inspector would be, if in those circumstances, to grant planning permission. Is that correct?
Yeah.